Hello, everyone, and welcome back to OpenITI Conversations. I'm back again with Theo Beers, who this time is going to be talking to us about his particular digital workflows, the kind of suite of tools and methods that he uses, and give us some ideas for kind of our own digital workflows, whether using the things that he does or kind of thinking about how we should craft them ourselves to kind of maximize whatever it is that we need to do in our own work. So Theo, I'm going to let you take it away and
Wonderful.
just take us through what you've got planned.
So I think I'll start by just sharing my screen and trying to make sure I can navigate to the right. Here we go. Yeah, and before I even get started, like what Jonathan just said, I think my main point is as digital humanities practitioners, and specifically those of us working in Arabic and Islamicate studies or Iranian studies, working with Arabic, with Persian, whatever this cluster of languages that we all find ourselves sort of working with and textual sources in that and people in fields like ours or adjacent to it, we all have to eventually come up with the set of tools that we need to have on our computers in order to read our sources, in order to analyze them, in order to transcribe texts from, say, Arabic script into Latin script, in order to write our research articles with transcribed terms or with a mixture of scripts if we're lucky enough to be able to quote from Arabic script text directly in an article. So we need to have an entire, I would call it a stack of software tools at our disposal installed on any given machine. And I thought this is a good time for me to talk about it because I recently moved to a new university, started a new job, was issued a new laptop, and had to actually think, what are the exact tools that I need in order to get up and running here? So like what's the stack? What's the real basics for me? And so that's what I'll be talking about. And I want to emphasize it. You're probably not going to choose the same things that I've chosen. That's not important. I think what's important is to be kind of mindful about it, to be aware of the fact that you are curating this tech stack on your own machine for your own workflow, and you want it to be as good as possible for what you're doing and meet your needs. And also that you can ask colleagues, other people who do this kind of work. You could ask people like Jonathan, others involved in OpenITI, what are some good tools that will allow for an easier experience with things like transcribing texts or things like, doing word processing in a mixture of Arabic and English or whatever it is that you need. So yes, having said that, I wanted to kind of start from maybe bottom up or maybe from low level to high level. Like what do we need on our system in order to be able to, for example, type in Arabic script or type in romanization to type the diacritics that we need to represent the characters that we use, whether we're using IGMES transliteration or LOC or whatever system. So one of like the lowest level things that we need is some keyboard layout on our system that gives us even the ability to use a key combination to type the characters that we need. Here there are multiple choices. One that I picked up while I was at the University of Chicago, and I'm now hosting the files required to install it, is called the Alt Latin keyboard layout. If you just Google it, you'll find these blog posts. I have one for Windows and I have one for Mac OS. And it walks you through downloading the file, installing it on your system, selecting it as the keyboard layout that you want. Now I'm using it on mine. I don't know if you can see up here on my toolbar where there's this little blue icon. This is what it's like on Mac OS, where you can switch among the different keyboard layouts that you have. So you see now, just for the basics, I have sort of the base US English one that you get with if you were to buy a new Mac computer. I have this Alt Latin sort of diacritic enabled keyboard layout, and then I have Arabic and Persian. And you can add more if you open your settings. It's not like a difficult thing to do. I assume people can figure that out. But having one like this where I'm using the Alt Latin, just to give a quick demonstration, it would give us the ability to type the all the different diacritics that we want. It just gives you and you use key combinations to do this. I go through it in the blog post. So I don't need to worry about it right now. But if you're going to want to find one, and that's one that you can use, is Alt Latin. Not everyone will use this. Another popular one that I've posted about on Twitter is called American Diacs, which is a little bit less flexible than Alt Latin, but is also in some ways easier to use. The key combinations, the chords that you need are easier. And I have links there as well, where I'm now hosting the files necessary to get that up and running. Um, and then if you're ever on like a mobile device or somewhere you're not even able to install keyboard layouts, I also have this little app where you can, pick the one that you need. Like if you're writing the word Muhammad in transliteration and you need that lowercase h with the dot under it, you can click that and copy it and then, paste it somewhere else. You have it on your clipboard. So I sometimes use this on my phone. But ideally, right, like you have a good layout installed that you can use on your computer and get comfortable with it and get faster with it. And then it will no longer feel like a chore to write the technical transliteration of terms, again, according to whatever system it is you're using, be it IGMAS, LOC, the German, the DIN one, or whatever it is. So that's one. The next thing you're probably going to need is going to be fonts. And this covers both a font that you would use in order to write in Arabic script and a font that you would use that would have the diacritics that you need. And I have favorites for both of those. For a Latin script font that has all the diacritic characters that you would need, the two that I tend to use, one of them is Brill's typeface, which they make freely available, but there are some licensing peculiarities that you would want to be aware of before publishing something using this font. But it's nice for sort of personal, non-commercial things. It's okay. And then and it's a nice looking font. That's the one that I'm using in this kind of demo document. I should say one thing I don't like with Brill is that by default they use these old style figures. Um, and this is, just a kind of tech literacy thing. You don't have to, and they do also ship the glyphs where you can use, instead of old style figures, you can use what are called lining figures. And so if you just switch it to proportional lining, you get these nice, or what I think is nicer and more modern style numbers. So you can use Brill even if you don't want the old style figures. And then a better licensed font is from SIL. They make a lot of really nice typefaces, and they use this, I think it's called the Open Font License to license them. Very nice. I recommend using their fonts a lot. And they have one called Gentium. That's a whole font family, but you can just download the one called Gentium Plus. It's freely available. You can use it in whatever you want, and it has, again, all of the glyphs that you would need. So if I can move this, I could switch it to Gentium. Should be pretty easy. Where's the hopefully I have it. No, I don't think I haven't restarted my word processor since I installed that font. Whatever, it doesn't matter. You can install it yourself. It's a nice looking font. It has everything. It's well licensed. And then for an Arabic script font, I also recommend one from SIL. I use their Scheherazade font for kind of like my default catch-all Arabic script font. It looks nice. Um, it would plays nicely with having diacritics on it. It's like a very normal Nesq style that's inoffensive. Obviously, there's a lot of nice Arabic script fonts out there, but I think it's cool that just from a single source from SIL, we can get a really good font that has all the diacritics that we want for transliteration in Latin script, and we can get a really nice Arabic script font that's not going to choke on anything that you might throw at it, that's at least anything remotely standard from Arabic or Persian or probably even Urdu. It's really nice, and they're permissively licensed, so you can just install those too. Now, I wanted to also mention, if you're going to be working in a code editor like Visual Studio Code, and if you want to have a monospace, like a fixed width font where all the characters are the same width, which is often used in software programming. If you want to have a font that meets that criterion while also having a very large character set and having all the diacritics that we need, there's a few that have gotten really good at this over the years. The one that I like the most is called Yosevka. Again, it's open source, permissively licensed. It comes in a bunch of varieties, actually, including monospace ones. And Yosevka covers over 7,000 characters. And it has everything. It has it has this left-facing little scoop for the ein, and it has all the little glyphs that are often not present in fonts. This is a really good one to use in your code editor. Again, whether that's VS Code or Kate or whatever you like, I can recommend that as a monospace coding-oriented font that nevertheless has all of the characters represented in it that we would want for transliterating between Arabic script and Latin script. And then finally, you can always, if you want to find more fonts, you can always play with Google Fonts. There's got a really big and growing collection, and you can search for different fonts on this platform by writing system. So you can choose Arabic, then you could choose different languages, like if you wanted an Urdu font. You see that narrows it down to only 41 that they have that claim to support Urdu within the Arabic writing system. But then you can sort them by popularity, and for any font that you select, you can always download it. These all tend to be pretty permissively licensed as well. And you can either download these fonts to use them on your own machine, or if you're developing a web app or something, they'll provide code that you can use in order to embed it so that it can be dynamically loaded. So that covers, we've covered so far, get a good keyboard layout or two, including, like I said, on mine, I have Alt Latin for transliteration, and then I have an Arabic layout if I want to write Arabic. I have a Persian layout if I want to write Persian. Fine. Get the fonts that you want in both Arabic script and Latin script for transliteration. Then the next thing we could cover would be you need to have good word processors or good code editors that you're going to use. One that I can recommend if you want to do a lot of mixing of left to right and right to left text and mixing of Latin script and Arabic script is called Melel. That's what I have open here. And you see it has other nice things where it allows you to choose the open type features that you want, like switching between old style and between old style and lining figures. And it's just a good word processor for mixing Arabic and Persian fonts. So you can choose a better font if you want. Actually, I don't know that I have. It also might have been too long, or sorry, I might not have restarted it since I installed Scheherazade either. But that is neither here nor there. You can select good fonts. You can mix right to left, left to right. There's the text direction button on this one is always available right here. So you can always, even in the middle of the line, you can select a block of text and say, this block is right to left, this block is left to right. So it allows kind of fine-grained control beyond what's sometimes available, what can sometimes be frustrating to deal with mixing text directions in Word. We could go through a whole other kind of video of how to get LaTeX set up to use mixing Latin and Arabic script. I don't even want to get into that because that would be a whole other video, but it is also possible if you're like a diehard LaTeX user, there are packages that you can add to that make it look nice or offer sort of good typography with mixing between Latin and Arabic script. And then, of course, like I've shown already before, you can use a modern code editor, especially one like VS Code. You can use it for advanced sort of word processing with technical stuff. You can add a font that has all the diacritic characters that you want in it. You can also mix between Arabic. It doesn't work very well. Actually, it works really, really frustratingly badly in some ways if you want to mix left to right and right to left text in VS Code. I'm not endorsing it. I wish it were better, but you can do it if you're careful. And yeah, so that covers kind of, again, having a keyboard layout, having fonts, having word processors that you like. And then I think that brings me to the last thing I wanted to show now, which is just an example, actually this example, probably one of the most idiosyncratic things that I've started doing in the last few years is using VS Code and using a text format called Markdown, and particularly a dialect of Markdown associated with this program called pandoc. Using this Markdown format, usually in VS Code, as my drafting format for academic writing projects that I'm working on. And I would not expect most people to have any interest in doing this, but I just wanted to show it is possible. It does have some good features. This is a short paper that I wrote last year on Nasrullah Munshi's Kalila and Demna and the phenomenon whereby he has quotes of poetry framing sort of stories in prose in that book of fables. And for this, this is the real sort of document tree, and this is the main Markdown document in which I drafted that short paper, which still hasn't come out, but I think it'll be published sometime within the next few months, hopefully, knock on wood. But why do I like this? Well, the biggest answer probably is that this is not only a plain text file in Markdown, rather than using the proprietary file format that you would use for MLL or for Microsoft Word or for any of the more full-fledged WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get word processors. Not only do we get this kind of simpler plain text format, but as a side product of that, as a byproduct of that, this plain text file that represents the text of my paper can be checked into a repository on GitHub. And in fact, it is. So I have this as a Git repository, which offers me a full history of all of the changes that I've made, backed up online on GitHub in a private repository, in a way that would allow me to return to any earlier state of this document at any time, or even just to go through the history now that it's been, over a year since you can see the last time that I made any edits to this was August of 23. I can go back at any time and I can look at each individual commit that I've made that made some edit to the document. So it gives me this fully reversible history of all the edits that I've ever made to this Markdown file, which represents the content of my paper. Now, I know Microsoft Word has its own history features. A lot of word processors do, but having this ability to go back to any snapshot at any time in the history of my working on this has really saved me a few times if I've deleted a paragraph that I wanted to then later go back and harvest some piece of, and it was months ago, and it's many revisions ago. Just to be able to browse through the history and find that and get it back is really nice. And it gives a kind of accountability, and it gives backup to the document. So if I lose this computer, right, if I leave it at a cafe somewhere and it's gone, well, I have not only the content, but the full history of this, everything I've done on this article project in GitHub. Now, the other very important thing to mention here is that I can probably the most important thing to mention about pandoc Markdown is that you can export from this to any other format that you want. So that's an important thing to mention, is that this is my source of truth. This is what I'm drafting, and this is what gets checked into the Git repository. This is the master version of my article, but obviously I also have the ability to export it to a Word document if I want, and I've done that. I have the ability to export to PDF if I want, and I've done that. And all of that can be done automatically using the pandoc program that just takes this Markdown document as the actual content and then can transform it into some arbitrary number of other file formats, including HTML, including Word doc, including PDF. I actually even have this paper. I think I have it as I even have it as like a web page. So like I export it to everything. It's like if I want to send a draft of this to someone, I can send them the web URL, I can send them the Word document, I can send them the PDF. And then it's just so it's one source of truth that then expands into an arbitrary number of other formats in which the document can be represented. Now, the final thing I want to admit about this is that at a certain point in the life cycle of any article that you write, you're going to have to probably switch to Word in order to go through revisions process, right? When you get comments back from readers and you have to do the revisions and then have to do the copy editing. So you're going to have to move the actual workflow out of this and into the impure realm of Microsoft Word eventually. And then at a later stage, when you get proofs, you're going to have to move to where usually these days what they're going to want is they're going to give you a PDF and ask you to comment on it in Acrobat. And so you lose the purity of having the Markdown focused, the Markdown centered academic drafting process eventually. But that's just the reality anyway. I mean, you gradually lose control of documents as they make it closer to publication. And this is no different. But I really do like during the whole research, drafting, and then even in the revision stage of a project. I've done this for several articles now, where this is what I'm working in on a day-to-day basis
Mhm.
until I have to surrender that control and work with reviewers or with the publisher or editor in Word and then in PDF. So yeah, and it all kinds of builds on itself. Like I said, here I need these keyboard layouts in order to be able to write words that have these diacritics in it, in order to be able to use this mixture of Arabic script and Latin script. I need a font that can display those characters. I need a word processor or code editor that I'm comfortable working in. Here's VS Code, as imperfect as it is, I'm comfortable with it. And then I need a workflow building on top of that. For me, it's pandoc Markdown, exporting to different formats that makes me feel comfortable doing whatever it is I'm doing. So I think with that, I'll probably stop sharing my screen. And then Jonathan, I don't know if you have
I did
any
have
questions.
one question that's kind of related before you kind of wrap up.
Sure.
I was just wondering if you have any particular workflow when for like kind of taking notes. So whether it's like primary, secondary sources,
Yeah.
stuff in Arabic, if do you transliterate, do you translate, do you keep a new
Yeah.
location? Like how do you kind of organize? I don't know.
I've done a bunch of different things with that. Now, one thing that's gotten really popular in recent years is to use like more of a what's called like a Zettelkasten type workflow where you kind of build a database of your own notes
Mhm.
that can hyperlink from one to the other. So you would have and the Zettelkasten would be like these little boxes where you could put note cards, and it's this famous system that some German philologists and researchers have been fond of using. Like I think Hertjan van Helder has like a big Zettelkasten system at home where he keeps his notes on every author and every work in classical Arabic literature, so that if someone writes to him about something, he can go find it and look it up and have an organized format. But now there's all these programs. Obsidian is one of them, and there's another one called Rome Research that people are using for note taking, where they'll create an entry for an author they're working on, for a source they're working on, for a given manuscript of a given work, and it can all link to one another. And then the actual note-taking format in the middle of that is usually in Markdown format, right? So very similar, probably not pandoc flavored Markdown, but something very similar. And then you can have the different pages linked to one another, and you can write notes in Arabic script if you felt like it, or in technical transliteration if you felt like it, using the diacritics. Or I often find myself being lazy when I'm taking notes because I'm trying to make progress reading something at the same time that I'm taking notes on it. I'll often just not do technical transliteration, and instead I'll just leave out the diacritics because I can type faster without it. But I've used Obsidian, I've used Rome, I've used a few of these, and I've spoken with other people who, like, I think Maxim Romanov is a big user of Obsidian. He does a lot of his note taking and writing in that now. So I can definitely endorse at a high level. Like if you want to get into a more serious note taking workflow, you get into one of these ones where you have basically a knowledge database that you're building, a knowledge graph that you're building, and you have different note documents that can link to one another, almost like how a wiki can work, where you'd have one entry for the author, you'd have another entry for each of that author's works, you could have an entry for each manuscript of a work, but it all links together so that you can find things that relate to one another from within one of these entries. Um, and then, yeah, then if, using one of those, I can definitely endorse, generally speaking, but then how fastidious are you going to be about things like technical transliteration in that context? It's like a very different question. And I find myself unable to uphold a high standard of transliteration accuracy when what I'm doing is trying to, take notes on general features of an Arabic manuscript or something. So that's my
As long as
answer
you
on note taking.
as long as you can find it later, that seems to be kind of crucial. It's like
Yeah.
sure you
Yeah.
just
And similar to how I said, like, um, having your writing backed up somewhere in case the worst happens. Some of these note-taking systems, including Rome, also by default have your note database constantly synchronizing between any device that you're working on and the main source of truth, which is some cloud-hosted copy. Although I think with Obsidian by default, you use a local file tree, so the files will be on your computer. But even with that, I know there are ways of integrating it to where the notes are actually being stored on Google Drive or on Dropbox or just any kind of arbitrary cloud hosting platform. And then you can have the Obsidian app on different devices, and you can access the same database of notes. And yeah, then the interlinking between them is what then makes it really easy to, or hopefully makes it easy to find a given note. So.
do you use any analog forms of note taking or like data generation these days?
I feel
No,
like I have like Moleskine notebooks and I'm like always doing something in them, but it's often like I write it and will I ever look at it again is like a total coin toss, you know what I mean? So that's why I feel weird about it. Like I'm always doing it. I will not leave the house without having a pen and little notebook with me. And I'm always writing little things in them, but as often as not, I'm never going to go back to it. But it's like a kind of a hard habit to break, right? We
and it can come in useful. I alternate. Sometimes I have recourse to my pocket notebook, and then
Yeah.
I'll go for like a week without looking at it. So
Yeah, and I've even, like I'll leave voice memos to myself as well. It's like whatever you can do at the moment, like, send yourself an email or take a voice memo on your phone or write something in a pocket notebook.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but that's
And
how it
one
is.
last question: do you ever annotate within a book,
If
lining your
yeah, honestly, to be honest with you, yeah, if it's my own copy, I'll absolutely use a mechanical pencil to um absolutely. I put little stars in the margin next to lines that I want to go back to. I'll dog ear a page if I feel like it. I mean, I try not to get too precious with my books, unless it is,
Yeah, yeah.
I have some that I've ordered like from Iranian book dealers, of things that have been out of print for 50 years. Like my 6 volume printed copy of the Divan of Sa'eb, like I've never touched the margin in any of those. But if it's like a modern scholarly book that I probably also have it in PDF, but if I have a hard copy of it, that's mine, it's for my own nefarious ends. So I don't hesitate to put little marks in the margins. One thing I've always kind of hated, and I just haven't found a good way of doing it. I've never I've never really liked I've never gotten into a good workflow with having a PDF document open and annotating it while I read. For some I've never found the one that clicked for me where it felt ergonomic for me to be reading and then adding notes. It's just so fussy where you like
Yeah.
highlight the bit of text. Um, but I know, if I came into some windfall, like from a class action settlement or stock trading or crypto or something, one device that I'd like to buy is one of these remarkable tablets. I don't know if you've seen these.
Oh,
They're these almost Kindle style e-ink display tablets, but they're like heavily optimized toward reading, annotating, and also note taking on documents, but also note taking for yourself. And they come with pens, and you can write,
wow.
and then anyway, like I've met professors, including in our field, who use these. Like I think Laura Harb has been using one. Beatrice Grundler, I think either did buy one or was going to. So yeah, look at the remarkable tablet if you want to waste $400 on a toy that you can use to note take.
I mean, I will say, I have so many books in PDF format,
Yeah,
and some of them are things I don't really need to read them. I would like to read them. So they're sort of that in between. They're not exactly recreational, but they're not exactly like sort of for my professional life.
right.
And so what it comes down to is they're things I'm going to read at like the end of the day. And
Yeah,
so what happens is I generally don't end up reading them because I've been working on a computer for, the work day. Do
right.
I want to pick the computer back up and look at PDFs at night in my free time?
Yeah, exactly.
The sort of
And
thing that might be kind of helpful.
yeah, because if this tablet is on your bedside table or it's in your breakfast nook or whatever space you have where you like go to relax at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, if it's there and you can pick it up and right in front of you, you're one click away is this PDF of this text that you might read. Like if I want to force myself to read a book, like I'll leave it in a place where I'm gonna find it
Yeah.
and trick
Well, it's
myself into
obnoxious
it.
because at least I don't know if all libraries are this way, but at least our library, the vast majority of new acquisitions these days are only in ebook format.
Yeah,
They don't bother
exactly.
using a physical copy.
Right. Yeah, I mean
So,
they've probably looked at their own data, like how often are these things being checked out? How much does it cost to just get a license to have the PDF? Like it's probably a no-brainer for them.
no, I
As
mean, I,
as
I
sounds
totally
of it.
understand from the library's perspective. It's aggravating because if I can get a physical copy of a book, that's generally what I would
Yeah.
prefer. So,
I've even heard that I heard recently about a publisher not only not wanting to give a printed copy for a review, but So sometimes now they'll say we're not giving out printed copies for the reviewers anymore. We're giving out digital copies. But I saw one where someone was asked to review a book, and the publisher was going to provide a PDF that could not be downloaded, could only be read in the sort of online platform of the publisher,
Yeah.
and the voucher would only be good for 1 month. So the person that they were going to have review the book wouldn't even have a file that they could have permanent ownership over.
Yeah.
They would only have 1 month to read it and then write the review, and then it's gone.
Copy it out by hand, maybe, if they
Yeah.
really liked it.
Or like take screenshots, I guess, on the computer. Like I can't imagine saying yes to that, though. It's ludicrous given
That's,
how long it takes to do a book review. Um, anyway,
things we
we
can't
all
control.
have our own, yeah, we all have our own workflows. That's the message. I'm supposed to emphasize at the end. Yours is gonna be different from mine. It's gonna be different from Jonathan's, but like the people who've been in it for as long as he and I have, like you're gonna have your own idiosyncratic workflows, and it's good, and it's worth thinking about, and it's worth chatting about and asking people what they're using, because maybe you'll find something that you like. So that's the point here.
And over the coming months, I hope to talk to more people and kind of get a feel for, yeah, what all these different workflows are, how people arrived at them, things that they like about them, things they don't. So everyone out there, stay tuned, and we'll be hearing
Yeah.
from